covering this pro-Palestinian protest at USC. Things started getting a little chaotic a few minutes ago, and that's why we are covering it. We were told that there was going to be a protest, and initially around the 11 o'clock news hour, things were fairly calm. We took a live picture. Things were calm out there. About 36 people were out there. But things have changed dramatically, and we have our Conan Nolan, who's following all this from the newsroom. Conan, what are your thoughts on all of this? I mean, tensions were rising already.
Right. A couple of observations. First off, if you noticed in the pictures that we had of the security on campus at USC, they were bareheaded or wore uniform hats. That's a calculation. They're not in riot gear. There's a suggestion has been in policing that if you gear up for a potential violent conflict, you invite that kind of conflict. So they've gone out of their way, as you can see here. Nobody's in riot gear. They're doing what they can to stop the encampment from starting. I think that's probably key. They've seen what the university administration has seen what happened at Columbia, where they had a tent city set up. It stopped the university. They brought in NYPD to clear it out. The tents came back, and now they're having to go hybrid. USC doesn't want to have to do that. This is at a critical juncture at in their semester, and they've got commencement coming up, which is also problematic. We've talked about the controversy over the valedictorian. There's a very good chance that this would have happened in spite of that, because we are seeing protests like this on other campuses around the country. At Cal Poly Humboldt, formerly Humboldt State University in the northern part of the coast, that university was shut down for a few days because of a tent encampment. Again, I think SC saw that. They didn't want to have to shut classes down. It's a very expensive university to attend, for one thing. And at the University of Texas and other places, we're seeing something similar. I should push back, though. We had an interview momentarily with Constantine Anthony. He's a member of the Burbank City Council, very liberal. And he was talking about USC having relationships with Israel, and that the money being spent on tuition is being funneled to fight the war by the Israeli Defense Force. You put that into context. Universities across the country, across the nation, have a relationship with a number of institutions, research institutions within Israel. And so the suggestion that USC is any different from the University of California or other private institutions around the nation is subject to some scrutiny. The fact is, SC's doing what universities and academic institutions around the nation have been doing for decades, ever since the establishment of the Israeli state. So there is that. And I have to tell you that the demands that we have to say there are 9 demands that they have put forth, the groups USC for Palestine. Among them is that USC doesn't expand. USC stops construction of anything anywhere outside of the campus, and that the USC doesn't have policing on campus. I can tell you those demands are not going to be met. Back
All
to
right,
you.
Conan, we're going to watch this with you, because what we're seeing, this is from Tracy Leong's camera, our reporter there on the scene. And it looks like we see some of the protesters and some people who are just standing by, everyone with a cell phone recording this, talking with the police. But as you said, they're really trying to not ramp this up. They're not in riot gear. They do have batons. But we are seeing a little bit of more tension in this area.
Right. It's called de-escalation. They're trying to keep this from getting any. And I have to tell you, I've covered more than my share of demonstrations in Los Angeles. There is a cadre of individuals who go to city council meetings, board of supervisor meetings, and they're very much interested in essentially confrontational politics. And I have no doubt they are part of this. They're part of the not just defund, but get rid of the Los Angeles Police Department constituency, if you will. So when our intern Jacob Wheeler said that there's a number of people on campus who are not students, I can guarantee there's quite a few of them. And my guess is that if you had to break down the most confrontational of those, based on the experience that we've had in protests of the past, I've already seen displays of vandalism, for example, on campus. There's a good chance that some of these, many of these, the most ardent, the most militant, are not students at all. But yeah, it's and we had the professor on from the journalism program. Yeah, this is 30,000 students at this university, the vast majority of which want to attend class and want to go to school and want to prepare for finals. Let there be no mistake about it. In fact, the White House just recently, in response to questions about protests on campus, said that based on surveys that have been conducted of young people, young university students, that a far greater number are concerned when it comes to issues facing the populace in the next election in November on issues of the economy. That 2% of those that were surveyed said that the war in Gaza was a priority issue for them. So they were pushing back on this notion that the White House is losing support from students across the country because of this. But nevertheless, it is a problem. It shows the American people that things are not under control on university campuses across the country, this one included, and that is not good for the Biden White House. It's never good for the incumbent when people don't think things are under control, and that's the concern here. You know, you talked momentarily about 1968. There's going to be a real concern about the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It was in Chicago in 1968 that was completely disrupted by riots outside and inside the convention chamber as well. And there's a concern if the war in Gaza isn't wrapped up soon, that could be a calamity for the Democratic National Committee and the incumbent president in Chicago, where he is to be coronated as the new nominee, as the returning nominee for the party. If something like this, if all of a sudden that becomes the epicenter of the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian campaign that we've been seeing on college campuses. So that has the Democratic Party concerned. I can guarantee you this is not good for the White House. And it's one of the reasons, perhaps, why pressure is being mounted by the White House and the Biden administration on Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, to wrap things up in Gaza as soon as possible because of the impact this is happening on domestic politics.
Go ahead.
Conan, do you think, I mean, we are seeing it in a few different campuses already, these protests. Do you think we will continue to see more of these happen at other campuses?
I think so. You know, part of the issue here is, you know, is if you're an activist, if you see yourself as an activist, as you see yourself as a warrior for the righteous when it comes to the Palestinian movement, and you see all the attention being paid on one campus in New York, you need to amplify it. And the way to do that is to bring that kind of attention to your campus. So, yeah, it's not a surprise. We could have predicted that there was going to be a movement at other campuses. We're seeing it in some red states as well. University of Texas at Austin being a very blue city in the middle of a very red state. But there's no question that this is advancing to other places. Humboldt, we could see it at other University of California campuses as well. So far, no. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. This was you could have guessed that this was going to amplify, and whether it goes even further is a very good question. And one group I should point out, we should not forget, is Jewish students on this campus at USC have said they have been harassed, they have been threatened, they feel uncomfortable being on campus. There's iconic symbols, the Star of David, they will not wear because of the harassment they're receiving. We've been hearing a lot of that on other campuses at Columbia as well. So they're part of this equation too. And to them, this sees a lot of this, the chants as well. There have been chants, pro-Hamas chants, that's a threat to their health and safety and makes them very uncomfortable.